Ever been called an old soul? It sounds like a compliment, right? But for a lot of people, there's a much deeper, more complicated story behind that label. So today, that's what we're going to get into. The survival logic of what's known as the parentified child.
Wow. I mean, this quote just hits you, right? It perfectly captures that gap. On one side, you have how everyone else saw you, this super mature, wise kid. But on the other, there's this hidden reality, what you were doing behind the scenes just to hold everything together.
Okay, so let's start right there. Let's pull apart this whole idea, this myth of the old soul.
If any of this is hitting home for you, I'm willing to bet you've heard this phrase a lot. Your whole life, probably. And look, people meant it as a good thing. They were trying to say, hey, you're special, you're so mature, you're gifted.
But deep down, you probably knew that wisdom, it didn't feel like some magical gift you were just born with. No, it felt more like a tool you had to forge yourself, a role you were forced to play because, well, you had to. It was just a flat-out necessity.
And this is the key mindset shift we're talking about. You got the myth on one side. You were just a wise, special kid. But then you have the reality that maturity was actually a biological adaptation. Think about that. It wasn't some special gift. It was a straight-up survival response to what was happening around you.
So that leads us right into our next part, a child's survival logic. Let's really dig into the why behind all this.
So there's a clinical name for this experience. It's called parentification. And it's basically when everything gets flipped on its head. Adults are supposed to be the emotional rock for kids, right? Well, in this case, the child is forced to become the emotional rock for the adults.
And the way a child's mind processes this it's kind of fascinating. They make this subconscious calculation, this little piece of survival logic that says, okay, if I don't step in here and manage all these feelings, if I don't keep the peace, who will? And wow, what an incredibly heavy weight for a little kid to carry.
And this is so important to get. This was never a choice. A kid doesn't wake up one day and decide, you know what, I think I'll grow up today. No, it's an instinct. It's an adaptation. Their little nervous system is just screaming, this doesn't feel safe. And it does whatever it has to do to create some kind of stability, some predictability in the chaos.
Okay, but this whole experience, it isn't just about feelings or memories. It goes way deeper than that. It actually has a real physical impact on a developing brain.
This is a huge piece of the puzzle. All that constant stress, that feeling of responsibility for everyone's emotions, it literally rewires the brain as it's growing. It's not just a bad memory you have. It's like the fundamental architecture of the building got changed during construction. And that rewiring leads to something called hypervigilance. Basically, your brain is always on high alert. It's constantly scanning the room, but not for like a tiger in the corner. It's scanning for emotional danger. You become an expert at reading the tiniest shifts in mood, anticipating conflict before it even starts. It is a 24/7 job for your nervous system.
And as you can probably imagine, being the family peacekeeper 24/7, well, it comes with a pretty heavy price tag in the long run.
And this, right here, might be the deepest wound of all. You learn this really powerful and, frankly, damaging lesson. The internal monologue becomes, I am loved, I am safe, only when I'm being useful, only when I'm fixing things or taking care of everybody else. So what happens? Love starts to feel conditional. It doesn't feel like something you just get. It feels like something you have to earn. It feels transactional. And you carry that into adulthood, believing you have to earn your spot in friendships and relationships by always being the strong one, the responsible one. And look, the ironic thing is, this makes you an incredible adult in some ways. You're probably amazing in a crisis. You're that super empathetic friend everyone calls for advice. But that expertise, it was forged in a fire that a child should never have had to walk through. It came from handling problems that were never, ever yours to solve.
So I want to leave you with this question to think about. If being mature, if being the old soul, was just a role you had to play to survive, who are you without it? When you finally give yourself permission to set that role down, who's underneath? Who are you, really, when you're not playing the part of the caretaker? That's a big question, and a really powerful one to sit with.